welcome to our first report here for the 2013 Race Across America. I'm Dave Toll. I want to say thank you very much for joining us for what's going to be a great race this year. There were guys who were riding in that sub 10-day range solo across the country in the 70s and into the early 80s. There were enough people doing it that a critical mass occurred where 4 gentlemen lined up to race across the country. That first edition was actually not called the Race Across America. It was the Great American Race that year, and it was won by a gentleman named Lon Haldeman. Lon has gone on to become really one of the not only founding fathers, but most respected ultra-endurance athletes of all time. He set multiple records. And when we talk about racing across America, we do it with solo racers, men and women. We do it with mixed 2-rider, 4-rider, and 8-rider teams. So the fastest time that we've ever seen is going to be coming from the 8-rider teams. And one of the ways, because we've raced so many different ways or routes across the country through the years, that we look at the average speed of the racers to determine really, that's one of the records that we look at, the best all-time rides. This year, as I said, we're starting in Oceanside tomorrow at 12 o'clock, and we'll be finishing, I would estimate, the team 8-rider record is 5 days, 5 hours, and 5 minutes. And we're certainly expecting that to be broken this year with the quality of field that we have, not only for our teams, but in our solo competition as well. It really is a battle of the giants this year in 2013. The route in 2013 is one that has been tried and true by the RAAM organization. As we start in Oceanside and make our way to Annapolis, we don't ever end up on the interstates. The racers will be using, it's not backcountry roads either. It's an interesting type of road that really works best for an event like the RAAM, but I think for all intents and purposes, you'd kind of call it those somewhat quiet but well-paved 2-lane country roads, the kind of roads that lead you into places like Durango, Colorado, where we'll be finishing our race across the West. Not all of the riders will make it all the way across the country, and that's another one of the designated points and certainly a prize within the Race Across America. So when you talk about the topography of the United States, obviously the terrain is amazingly varied that our riders will be facing. It's going to be a very hot start. The West Coast right now is scorching. And they'll be seeing temperatures well over 100 degrees as they roll out of Oceanside, or pretty quickly after they roll out of Oceanside. Now, the lowest point that they hit on the race each year is 170 feet below sea level. They climb also above 10,000 feet along the way. And if you do the math, that's a 2-mile window that you're looking at. So it's the vertical gain and the wind, along with the conditions, that make things so incredibly tough to complete the over 3,000 miles that is the Race Across America each year. So when you look at what type of athlete is well suited to do that, it's a very specialized human being, to say the least. It's not just the engine that the rider has, and that's a critical component, but it's also the mentality, the ability to continue riding when your body is screaming at you to get off the bike. A mortal human being wouldn't come close to being able to stay on the bike for many reasons. And really, it's the pain of just continuing to go at this, keeping it right near the red line, but not going up into the red zone too far, because if you do, you blow the engine, and then you have a major problem where you have to come back good again. And they can't afford to do that in the Race Across America. When you're only sleeping at a maximum for our solo riders of 90 minutes a day, and that won't even begin until they're 36 hours generally, depends on the tactic and the strategy of the rider and their support team around them. But you're not even going to take your first sleep until 36 hours in. Then it's only going to be around an hour nap before you're riding once again. And I think calling it sleep isn't fair, because I would imagine that you're not going into your REM cycle. Now, some of the teams, it's different for them, as their strategy will be to continue cycling and relaying riders out on the course and trying to maximize playing to the strengths of riders. The better climbers, you try to make sure that they take more time on the climb. Riders who are stronger on the flats, have them on the flats. You play to the strengths of the riders on your team. When you're a solo men and women, it's all about your ability to keep your focus. And that's another one of the things that happens. I mean, you can imagine for most of us, when we're on a 2-hour bike ride, your mind will wander. That's very normal. You see beautiful things, and along this route that they're racing on, there's a lot of, as I said earlier, amazing topography. But just keeping focused on riding at this unbelievably hard level to hold, where you're right there, giving it a lot of effort, but not going too hard. And that's the balance that you have to work through 3,000 miles across the country. The Race Across America is the world's toughest endurance race, and that you can say with an exclamation point. It is over 3,000 miles each year. The terrain is incredibly complex. To dissect this course and have a strategy to race on it is extremely hard to do. When you look at other events like the Tour de France or like the Boston Marathon or like Paris-Dakar, well, those events all take breaks. This is non-stop racing for our athletes. We talk about how little sleep they get. Well, even in an event like the Tour de France, which is actually a shorter distance as well, it is paramount that those riders receive maximum amount of rest to be able to come back and do it again the next day. What happens here is these athletes absolutely bury themselves for the solo riders for the better part of 8 days as they make your way across the country. You might wonder, what kind of person would subject themselves to this? Well, it's a very special athlete. It's athletes actually from around the world that contest the Race Across America. We've watched over the last 10 years, this has become an incredibly respected international event. And our defending champion is actually a Swiss rider. The Swiss have done very well here. The Austrians, the Danes. It has been interesting to see it's the Northern European countries, the Germans as well, that have really focused and sent talented athletes here year after year. We have 3 former winners in the race this year. You can go back to 2006 to see the Swiss rider, Daniel Wies, winning. His compatriot, Rito Schock, was the most recent winner that we had, winning last year. And then there's an Austrian rider, Christoph Strasser, who's also in our field. This has become a battle of the giants in 2013. Much like world-class boxing, it's very hard to get the top athletes in the ring at the same time. Well, with the Race Across America, it is also very hard to have riders peaking at the same time. They're having careers that overlap so nicely, as that's what we're going to have, is really one of the best races. It should go back and forth multiple times as they make their way into the first few days of racing, and then we'll see if the rhythm is what we expect or if it's going to continue to be chaotic out there. This should be, as I said, one of the most interesting Race Across Americas that we've ever had. Even though the Race Across America started as a solo competition, it has morphed over the years into being really a multifaceted event. There's not only the solo men and women racing now, but we also see 2, 4, and 8 rider teams. The 8 rider teams will actually compete the race, some of them with an average speed over 23 miles an hour. The fastest that any team has ever gone across the country is 5 days, 5 hours, and 5 minutes. It's mind-bending how quickly these guys are able to get. I mean, try driving your car across the United States in 5 days, and I think you'll realize that you're pushing it just to be able to do that. So within these teams, there's all types of different strategies, and that's one of the things that we're going to have an opportunity here on the RAAM report to cover, is how they're attacking this race, what their tactic is, and it'll be interesting to see what works this year. We've always raced from the west to the east, and this year's edition is going to start out very, very hot. And it'll be interesting to see also how the teams are going to handle some of the physiological pressure that they're going to be up against this year. As it does look like this will be one of the more challenging editions of RAAM, as well as we race starting tomorrow at 12 o'clock in California and should be finishing next weekend in Annapolis, Maryland. Within our 2, 4, and 8 rider teams, there's multiple and very diverse tactics and strategies that they deploy. as just finishing this race has proven to be very, very tough. Less than 200 people have done it in the history of the Race Across America. In the 2013 edition of RAAM, we'll be starting our teams on Saturday from the exact same start line in Oceanside, California, that our solo riders are using tomorrow. That's Tuesday, June 11th at noon. So we have 3 different teams that we've embedded with this race. We're going to be able to get coverage that we've never seen before from the Race Across America. And really one of the things that you're going to see first is obviously we'll be looking at our solo riders very intently over the first few days of this race, as they'll be the only riders on course. Starting once again Saturday at noon, we'll turn one of our crews back to pay attention to the teams that are racing here as well, as they're very quickly going to be picking up the solo riders as they make their way across the country. As we said, the teams have done this race as quickly as 5 days, 5 hours. The solo riders typically do it in a little over 8.5 days or so for the fastest ride. It's somewhat amazing that the fastest ride in the Race Across America history goes all the way back to 1986. We'll see if someone's going to break that record here in 2013. The athletes that we have competing at the 2013 edition of the Race Across America have already qualified in many, many ways to be here, not only by competing in Race Across America qualifying events, but most of them are record holders in their own countries. There are all types of records, the top to bottom of countries, across countries, around the globe, all of this type of stuff. And that you don't just show up at the Race Across America with your Huffy and say that you want to have a go at it. You have definitely proven that you belong in that field. It is something that we can't play around with. The quality of athlete has to be proven before you even start to attempt something this majestic. When you think about riding your bike across the country, most of us think about doing it with a tent and a backpack and staying at youth hostels and getting our way across the country using the goodwill of others. Well, if you're doing the Race Across America, you are an elite athlete on your game, and you're going to need a team around you to support you through the event. Costs of running our team through Race Across America can run upwards of $50,000. As you'll need at least 4 qualified individuals. If you think sleep is a problem for the racers, it's also a problem for the support staff. They have to deal with, as a matter of fact, in a lot of ways, the Race Across America is a huge challenge for our support staffs. The riders will end up eating in the neighborhood of 8,000 calories a day. When you think about how much food that is, that's a lot of food not only to eat, that's a lot of food to prepare. When you talk about Racing Across America and the team around the athletes that do it, there's certainly some key roles that need to be filled. The bicycle mechanic is one. The bicycles go through an awful lot, not just flat tires, but there's quite a bit that you need to maintain on the cycle, as this is a high-level racing machine, just like a Formula One car. You also have to worry about the rider's psychology, and we need to have a mental coach with them to make sure that they're doing okay out there, that they're not pushing too hard and they're pushing hard enough if they want to win the race. You're going to need to have a massage therapist. Actually, there have been some riders in the past that have traveled with acupuncturists. That's how Jock Boyer won the race going back into the 80s. So you also would clearly need a chef, someone to prepare the food, as well as a team of people to drive these support vehicles. The support vehicles are not only there to encourage the riders, to make sure the riders are safe, but also to make sure that they're fueled. So it is truly a rolling space center out there. We're looking forward to a really exciting edition of Race Across America this year. And every evening at 8 o'clock Eastern Time, you're going to be able to join us as we have 3 media teams that we've embedded with the race. They're with the solo riders right now in Oceanside, gathering information for us as well as interviews. They'll stay behind to pick up the teams when they leave. And once again, the races are starting at 12 o'clock noon in California. That would be 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Our media teams will be giving us a look at the Race Across America like we've never had before. So I really hope you join us for the ride. We'll see you tomorrow night on the RAAM Report here at 8.